In the 21st century, the character of Redwood City will continue to change, as it has since the days of the gold rush.
What's the biggest issue right now? Housing. I mean, just housing is so expensive right now. That is probably the biggest issue that is really, really challenging people. And the people we see, because we see folks who are working poor. I mean, these are folks who are working, but they're on the lower end of the income and struggling when that rent goes up, or, they can't find another place.
What I see now distresses me because there are so many apartment buildings, so many more people coming into Redwood City, and that will be coming into Redwood City. And I'm worried about the schools, how they're going to accommodate them, how our roads and our waters and all of our electricity, etc., is going to accommodate them.
From the elementary school district, which is the K-8, and then the high school district, are going to have a real challenge coming up here because so much more housing is being built within Redwood City that I think they're going to run out of space, and we're going to get really crowded. So from a community aspect, looking forward in the future, I think that's going to be something that needs to be addressed.
What you've seen a lot of times is the bust and boom cycle, with the first bubble bursting in 2000, 2001, the second one bursting in 2008. So you've had this up and down thing, and you've got people who have never been poor that are suddenly poor and don't know what to do about it. You've got people who have always been poor and are just getting poorer. And you've got people that have suddenly become rich, and now what do you do?
Do you see those two poles pulling apart as some people become more wealthy, many more people become poorer? Is that?
Yeah, I don't know if I see it pulling apart more than it is, because I already think it's a pretty extreme gap already. So, coming back to what I was mentioning about future planning, the idea, this whole thing about trying to help people build assets sort of is kind of the concept. And, when we're talking about building assets, we're talking about, being able to have $5,000 in your savings account, like that we're talking about that basic about build assets. We're not talking about major, investment, but those kinds of basic things as small steps towards helping people.
We're not San Francisco. We're not Burlingame. Or San Mateo even. We're Redwood City.
And this means that the challenges we face as a parish are changing too.
It's still a vibrant congregation. It's still, you've got kids, you've got life in it, but you do have a fairly old plant, and so it's you've got this old traditional church that has seen 150 years of differing worship and differing styles, but it's still being used and still moving forward.
But I think that a place like St. Peter's is in a really good position to emphasize that big tent approach, that this is a place where different people, because there's so many different people in the community of Redwood City, can come together and share their differences and find commonality through those differences.
I just gave Susan an article out of the Week magazine, in Ireland today, as a largely Roman Catholic, 18% of Roman Catholics now go to Mass. 18.
I think it has a lot of growth, but
potential.
But the thing is that there's no recruitment, like people to go out and recruit.
Well, having been most of my career in public relations, we should go out there selling our service and selling the fact that we have a nice community. Just come and sit down and listen.
Probably put more publicity about us, because it's so welcoming and homey. It's just nice to see other people come, because it is really small. There isn't a lot of people that come. I counted today, there's only 29 people. But I hope that there's more people who can experience the family and the joy that we have, and just come to know the other Redwood City people better.
I think that it would probably benefit from having more perspectives and ideas, but I also like how it is a bit smaller than a modern day church, like what people think of churches now. I think that kind of sets us apart a little bit, because we went to church when Grandpa was here, and there were so many people. It was like huge. I was like overwhelmed. I think it could definitely benefit from a few more people, but I also like how it is like a bit smaller.
Everybody knows
like everybody kind of knows everybody. It's very like personal in that regard. So.
I think the growth is important, but I remember when we were on the vestry, we kind of looked at that. Do we want to be a huge church? And we decided we don't. And so I don't think we want a huge, maybe the congregation that we have right now is about right, if we could maybe involve people a little bit more.
St. Peter's has always had people who do outreach. There's, Hopkins Manor Ministry, and there's been Maple Street, and there's been a lot of different activities. And the thing is, I think it's just, you need a critical mass, and sometimes we don't have that.
But I don't know exactly how to do it other than to have some events that try to publicize something out in the community somehow to get people to come.
Father Jones was here towards the end of his however long, 15 or 20 years that he was. I was one of the younger people there, and I was approaching, in my late 40s, almost 50, and you've got to have that going or things will go up. And I remember John Delling, one of our old curmudgeonly fellows, said, if we don't get the right priest in here, he says, I'll be the last one, but turn out the lights, the party's over, He said, you've got to energize people and make them want to come. And I don't know, like I say, we're welcoming, but we just maybe need a little bit more commitment on people's parts.
So I think it's getting them to come and join us for smaller things, whether it's, just singing for caroling, or maybe, like we had a couple friends who joined us for that in December. And, just kind of getting introduced to little parts of the church without feeling like they're committing every week.
I would say getting people, especially young people, because that's where it's at. It's the same as, I compare it with our sorority, it's the same thing. You have to keep getting young people in, which we did not do, because the older ones either are dying off or they don't come anymore because they're older, and it's a different world.
Children are the most important thing, I think.
Well, I think unity in the church, unity of all the age groups, and the programs for the children. That's really important for the young ones and the older children, because they're the future of the church.
I think the priorities is including the young families and the children, that the music and the liturgy for their service in particular meet their needs and be something that they can relate to. When we got a new priest, and every time, we all talk about growth. And I would love to see it the way it was when I first came, a thriving thing. And I don't know, it's a whole different paradigm, the way people treat their faith or how it is. It isn't really an outgoing thing. Maybe it's a more personal thing. I know a lot of I'm very gratified to see the young families that are coming, and getting involved.
Are you like Chairman Mao? Do you have a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan?
I don't. My plan right now is just to get the congregation, build up the community of the congregation, and then just get us out there into the community.
And I've kind of seen things, it's kind of like when you're in a school system, this happens too. Things keep circular, it's very circular. Hey, we need to do this. We need to grow the church. That seems to always be the thing that people talk about, is growing the church. And I'm kind of with Maddie on this one. I think we would welcome more participants, but I think we are who we are. And, I don't see making huge changes, because I think that would really, you might make others uncomfortable. And, there's a lot of lifers here who go to this church, and, they have built it to be what it is. And I think it's really important to respect the history of this church. And I would love to just reach out to the immediate community a little more. I mean, when Jeff was talking about how we notice most of their friends don't go to church, I think there's a lot of folks looking for something that they may not realize it's right in their backyard, that there is this church that is very welcoming, and you can acolyte in your flip-flops, and it's really comfortable. And I think what people think of church is something serious and formal, and while we have the great historical liturgy and it's traditional, it's still very welcoming, and I think I love that. It is welcoming to all traditions. I grew up really with no spiritual education, and Jeff had a really strong Lutheran background, and it's nice for us as parents now to come here and raise our children in yet a new denomination and grow and learn with them.
And I think what's shifted a little bit, perhaps, and this is maybe getting more to the heart of your question, is that that this church in this day and age has begun to realize that it's not just our own community that we need to focus on, but the community at large, that we're embedded in this community around us.
It's a certainty that the pace of change will accelerate. Where will that lead St. Peter's? For more insight, we assembled a panel of experts on the future.
All right, so Lauren, do you think like 15 or 20 years from now, do you think Redwood City is going to be bigger, more people, or smaller, fewer people?
I think it's going to be more people because the population is already increasing now, and it's a desirable place to live, so I think it'll be bigger.
I think bigger as well because of the location, and also San Francisco is just about an hour away, so that's a very desirable location. So it will attract many people.
I think there's also going to be more people because of the location, like they said. Also, there's things to do around the city and in the city. So there's things for people of all ages. The downtown's really nice, and there's lots of sports and different activities.
If there's more people, Ben, what do you think here? This is a math question. If there's more people coming to town and there's only so much space, do you think houses are going to be more expensive or less expensive?
They'll probably be a lot more expensive because there isn't much room for more residential.
Right. So,
and it's going to be in very high demand because there's not a lot, and a lot of people are starting to move in.
Stuff like food and clothes and toys and stuff like that, more expensive or less expensive?
Probably more expensive because if there's more people, they'd raise the price of the things because there's less of them. Yeah, also it seems to be getting more expensive to raise kids because colleges are more expensive, and also if you want them to go to a private or a public school, and activities that they're doing outside of school also depends too.
So Caroline, what do you think would make the world a better place?
I don't know. There's lots of things that could be
pick
fixed.
one, yeah.
Maybe just lowering the prices on some things so people can afford them, and then they wouldn't have to be so in need.
What can you do to make that happen?
Donations could be one.
I see.
So if people if you could just donate your clothes that you grew out of.
Lauren, what do you think would make the world a better place?
I would probably say less violence and stuff. Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you have in mind as to how you can help fix that?
Raise awareness for what's happening in some of the smaller countries that people don't really care about in America and stuff. That people don't really know about.
Education, in other words, keeping people informed. Yeah. Yeah, Ben, what do you think? What would make the world a better place?
Well, there's lots of things, but I think focusing on the teen population and the next generation, and making sure that they have good hearts and they have the right ideas and education to go out into the world and innovate and be the next Nelson Mandela's or presidents.
I think that making healthy food more affordable would be good because Like I know if I go to In-N-Out, you can get a burger for like $2, but that's not very good for you, and that will probably cause health problems if that's all you eat, especially if that's all you can afford. So that in the long run is actually worse for you. But like I know my mom tries to buy like mostly organic fruit and stuff, but that's pretty expensive, especially if you aren't making very much money.
Ben, when we were saying earlier how stuff is more likely to cost more than cost less, and do you think that contributes? Does that make it harder for people who don't have a lot of money?
Well, yeah, most likely. But I also think that the minimum wage and average pay will go up with the price of material goods.
Well, in Redwood City, I would say everything's really expensive because it's a good location. And a lot of people want to live in the area and be in the area, but they can't afford it. So I would probably say more affordability in some way.
More affordable places to live?
And like...
More affordable good food?
Yeah, and like gas prices are pretty high here.
If like we go to Toys R Us for presents and there's this camp out over under the bridge of the freeway. And so they don't have anything but chairs and a couple of bags and stuff to lay under.
You think there's a lot of homeless people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably from like illegal stuff, probably from like drugs or like something like that, or even just if they ran out of money.
Well, I know like in my school newspaper, there was like an article about the homeless teens that go to our school. So I think that would be important because especially like as a teenager, I know that I don't think I would be able to like support myself really yet. So I think those would be good people to help.
So trying to tie it together, Caroline, how does the church help people in Redwood City?
Well, we have are they called help bags or hope bags, which we fill with stuff and we kind of pass them out to the homeless and stuff.
Harper, didn't your mother organize a big program for the school kids in the fall? Tell us about that.
Yeah, my mom, like she noticed at the school that my sister goes to, they are required to wear uniforms. And so some people can't afford to buy new ones like each year, or if they grow out of them, they still have to wear them. So we started, I think, with just uniforms. But then we also, I know a lot of my teachers buy school supplies for the classrooms with their own money. So we collected crayons and markers, glue sticks, pencils. We packaged it up and sent it to different schools that we thought were in need in Redwood City.
I was hoping to volunteer this summer with my friend, actually. And I think there's so many benefits to it. Like, it looks good on college applications. You help the community. You're not bored all summer. So I think it would be really helpful if more people volunteered.
Yeah, that makes good sense. Harper, what do you think you could do to make Redwood City a better place?
Well, I know there's a lot of organizations and programs that you can volunteer with, which would get you out in the community. And I heard of one at I think it's Palo Alto Medical Foundation, and it's you have to do an outreach project, and it's a summer program. So probably volunteering and just meeting more people that are not like you, and that come from different backgrounds, because Redwood City is really diverse.
Now, narrowing this down even further, what do you think would make St. Peter's a better church?
Well, St. Peter's is very good the way it is, but I would say I would try to encourage families with children to come to church and experience the church every week instead of some families only come on holidays. And I just think it would be beneficial for the church to have more families.
Well, I know I have friends that are my age that I'm really close to, but I'm not really I don't really know people that aren't my age. Like, I've talked to them, but I'm not really close to them. So I think if, like, people of different ages and, like, backgrounds maybe, because everyone kind of has their comfort zone. So everyone has the people that they're most comfortable with. But I feel like if we go out of that and we talk to other people and get to know other people, then it'll be more like a community and everyone will be more connected.
I would have to agree with Ben saying we need more families coming more regularly because there's not that many now, and we could probably do this by telling them, or telling more families about St. Peter's.
And how do you think we could go about getting more of them?
I think that if we just appeal to them somehow, which seems really obvious, but I think that the idea of church seems like a chore and like a hassle, but I actually really enjoy coming to church. So if we could just figure out a way to like show them that it's fun and stuff, I think that'd be like helpful.
The youth of St. Peter's recognize that the community's needs are increasing, and the parents and adults of the parish are equally aware that the parish's outreach ministry must grow in the years ahead.
The other thing that I'm loving watching develop is the kids on Sunday morning. The kids have a sense of social justice that I've never seen before, and that I certainly did not have as a child. I don't know about you, but this was not what I was taught in Sunday school, was not social justice. I had to memorize psalms and things. But these kids are learning social justice, and they are ready to get out there and do things. So last year they put together backpacks, they put together hope bags that we carry in our cars and we give out to homeless people when we see them on the street or somebody begging on the street. We've got something to hand them instead of money. They've always got some idea and they're always working on something. And so this year, because it's our 150th anniversary, they decided they were going to get 150 backpacks together. And they're going to get 150, packages of pencils and 150 hand sanitizers to put in there, and 150 this and 150 that.
The history of what's happened in churches, people graduate, and like church schools once had many students. Well, in our day and age, what happens Sunday morning? Soccer practice. How are you going to say to a kid, we're going to church today, but Mom, I've got soccer, I can't. So there you are. So I can sympathize with all parishes to know, but I find that the Lord weeds and the remaining people that are there are so joyful, and in retirement, I've supplied 55 different parishes now, and many of them over and again. And I find this joy, and I find this caring. The outreach is so immense everywhere. Everywhere I go, I have to take my canned goods. I don't have to, I take them because that's part of what we do, is our stewardship of what God gives us. And it's something to pray for the poor, but what do we do about it?
So part of the work of the clergy, in my view, is to help keep the congregation involved in ways that it's looking outward as well as looking inward. I mean, there's always the problem of how do we keep the roof from falling in on us, but there's also who in the community needs help that we can provide in some way, who in the diocese needs help that we can provide in some way, so that it's a two-way communication, or at least two-way communication, multi-path communication.
Because there's a big gray area, there's a big jump from where people are in their lives right now and their ability to engage a spiritual conversation and a spiritual journey. And what I found at St. Peter's was that where you bridge that gap is in service and in, in particular serving the poor, which St. Peter's has a tremendous opportunity to do, because there are probably larger pockets of poverty in the Redwood City, East Menlo Park, East Palo Alto area of the peninsula than anywhere else on the peninsula.
We are embedded in this community. We've been here for a long, long time, and I think that's a wonderful thing. People know who we are, they know where we're at, And we know the community as well, and so we know the people around us.
Like particularly Redwood City has changed quite a bit in that it really grew a lot more. You know, there's just a lot more population here. And all the different nationalities that are here now that weren't here in such prominence before. So that's changed a lot. It really has changed. But I think there's a lot more need in the community now because of the recession that hasn't ever gotten back to where it should be. And I think there's a lot of things that actually maybe St. Peter's could be involved in if there were enough people to help with some other things. I know we do outreach to the Maple Street Shelter and some other things like that, but I think there's some more places that maybe we could put our efforts.
You know what strikes me as I was going through the archives and as you're asking that is in the 50s and 60s there was a robust congregation, and I realize that things in our culture have changed over the years, and I'm not sure there are many churches that have a robust congregation, but they had fashion shows, there are a lot of women's events, and a lot of activities that were written up in the paper and that people from outside St. Peter's were invited to, and we do some of those things. But I wonder if and I know when we were on the vestry, we talked about this, how do we get to connect with the community? And like having speakers during campaigns come in, and we've done that a few times, and just kind of see if we can get our name out there more to integrate with the community.
What I would like to see in the near future is to just try out different things and see what really resonates, and then see what resonates, and then really try to gather everybody and get everybody involved.
Looking at St. Peter's, since I've come back and been a little more part of it and reading your newsletter and everything, I always had to smile when people say, well, of course, we're such a small congregation. I wonder what would happen if the 12 apostles said, I don't think we're going to make it. There are only 12 of us.
What I've experienced at St. Peter's with different service projects is that if you make the service project simple and you make it something that everybody can participate in different ways, like when we did the backpacks and the school supplies, some people gave money, some people took that as an opportunity to go shopping for school supplies with their younger kids. Some people just handed us big bags of supplies. So everybody could do it in a different way, and it didn't have to be at a certain time. That was really successful.
Well, I mean, I just know there's a lot more homeless people around, and that there isn't housing for them. And I don't know what to do about getting housing for them, but I feel bad that they don't have anywhere to go. And I wish that we could do something like that. Possibly there might even be some places where we could help with children who are trying to find their way, children who might not have a loving family at home to guide them. They may get into gangs or something, and I don't know what we could do, but it would be great to be able to offer a service of some kind that would reach out to these young people and basically give them some love.
I do think that I would tend to say, this is just the way I think about doing work in the community, it's always best to try to connect to efforts that perhaps already exist rather than trying to create something ourselves. So perhaps we have an idea and then we think, oh yeah, well let's create this event or let's create this activity. Usually there's somebody else that perhaps is already doing that. So rather than inventing it ourselves, I think the way to go is figure out how do we connect and add value to what else is already happening.
I think one of the big significant things is the awareness of lay people and for the ministry of lay people. Because people used to, I remember people always used to refer to anybody who was, not all, but some, who was the priest of the church, he's our minister, you know.
Yeah.
And so I keep emphasizing, and even at the 4 retirement homes I go to regularly, I keep saying to them, you know, of course, every one of you, I presume, are baptized. If you are baptized, that you've been made a minister for Christ.
I think there's just a lot of potential. I mean, we have kind of a small group that is very tight-knit, and I think there's a lot we can do. Whatever we want to do, we can do. And I think we just need to change our perspective a little bit to be more thinking about how does the community need us? How can we be indispensable to the community? We do a good job taking care of ourselves and nourishing ourselves. And if we take that out in the world, I think it's gonna help each of us in different ways, and it's gonna help the community, which is what we want to do.
Where will St. Peter's go on the next stage of its journey? Our direction will surely be influenced by the 150 years of history that has brought us to this current milepost. For 150 years, our parish has welcomed our neighbors. We've worked hard to help make Redwood City a better place. Today is a time of change and challenge, just like 1864 and 1914 and 1964. But St. Peter's Church is still a place where all are welcome as we join together on our spiritual journey, today and always.
I believe that. I really, in my heart, believe that we are creating the kingdom of God here. That is our work. That is our ministry.
Sometimes I would come into the church when I'd come to prepare a kid if I had to go out and be all quiet in there on a weekday, if I had to go do a hospital visit. And I could look out and I can see Jesse Felcher, who lived to be 102, and I can remember the choir loft when it was full of people, and there's a song that the kids had that they used to sing, well, we do once in a while, called I Sing a Song of the Saints of God, and I thought, I can look out there and see all these people, you know, and even up into more modern times like Ann Anderson and Kay Bunyan and all the people that really kept things going and held it together. And I said, those are the saints of God.